Let's get some analysis with Michael Shoebridge. He's Chief Executive of Strategic Analysis Australia. Michael, a few things to unpack there. First of all, that key line from Lloyd Austin, we will not allow Australia to have a capability gap going forward. That, of course, in relation to the subs. What's your read on those comments?
Well, he said that, but it's pretty clear we're not going to hear much until the March report of the Nuclear Submarine Task Force. I think it's all tied up with the bigger force posture announcements, and they really were the centrepiece of this AUSMIN, that the US is going to have more of its forces use more of Australian facilities. And in fact, we're inviting Japan in to do the same. That's the path to increasing our own security by having our powerful partners operate out of Australia. That'll take investment in facilities here by us. And it complements us increasing our own military power. But I think we've got to be patient on the submarine path and wait till March.
With the broader AUSMIN talks following on from that, the AUKUS meetings in Washington, this has been a pretty important week when it comes to the US alliance, hasn't it?
Well, it sure has. And I note that in their remarks, neither Foreign Minister Wong nor Defence Minister Miles mentioned China, but in the joint AUSMIN announcement, it says that Australia and the US both recognise that there is strategic competition with China and that we both want to manage that strategic competition responsibly. So I think there's an underpinning of realism in the announcement, and maybe we didn't hear that as clearly from our two representatives in the press conference.
When we look to the later in the week, the 2+2 talks in Tokyo, are you of the view that this relationship now is essentially an alliance in everything but name?
Yes, I think the security declaration between the two Prime Ministers, Prime Minister Kishida and Prime Minister Albanese, really has it at a similar status now to our US partnership, with that same principle of consulting about what to do about security challenges. But also Japan is moving very quickly to do a whole lot of the things with its military that we need to do with ours. Our main problem now is keeping up with the Japanese, which is something that's reversed decades of our partnership.
Michael, when you look at the amount of ammunition that's been used in the Russian aggression and war in Ukraine, in that invasion, it has been an extraordinary amount of ammunition. Do you think that the US, Australia and others, when in these talks, are saying, as allies, we really do need to start building up stocks because, to put it frankly, Australia is nowhere near where it would need to be in the event of a calamity of the sort of conflict in our region?
Kieran, you're right. I think these talks got very practical. So there's a real emphasis on some of Australia's strengths, our location and our ability to maintain platforms and equipment, but accelerating not just our ability to produce things like ammunition, but the US's as well and Japan's. That's essential given what we've seen in Ukraine. It turns out the US and South Korea are our two arsenals of democracy, and neither of them can produce enough to even sustain a limited conflict now. And I think the leaders understand that.
When you look at the history of not just Australia-US relations, but with other countries of like-minded approach to the rules-based international order, the US hasn't always been forthcoming with technological know-how and so on as much as many allies would like. Does there have to be much more open sharing of defence capability into the future, Michael?
Well, yes, there does, but I think this is a frustration. You could see it in the AUSMIN announcement, and you will probably hear more of it around AUKUS. The US and Australia are still pretending we're going to fuse our entire industrial ecosystems with each other. That's going to fail because there are so many complications and interests in doing that really broad-based joining up. We'd be much better being ruthlessly focused on key things like ammunition production, missile production, rather than trying to do this waterfront reform that has failed every time we've tried it.
Michael Shoebridge, great to get your analysis as always. Thanks.